Beyond the Gates explodes back onto CBS with an episode that refuses to breathe, let alone slow down, as the weight of secrets, betrayals, and simmering danger presses down on every corner of Fairmont Crest, opening with a hauntingly quiet morning that feels wrong before anyone even speaks, the kind of calm that only exists right before devastation strikes, and that unease is immediately embodied by Jacob, who wakes before dawn, staring at his phone with a message unread but clearly burning a hole in his conscience, his expression torn between fear and resolve as he deletes the message without responding, unaware, or perhaps willfully ignoring, that this decision will become one of the final dominoes in a chain reaction that will soon cost him everything, while across town Kat stands frozen in her bathroom, clutching the sealed envelope containing her genetic test results. Her reflection fractured by the mirror as if foreshadowing the fracture about to rip through her family, and, though she insists to herself she's strong enough to open it now, her hand trembles, her breath catches, and she tucks the envelope away once more, choosing denial over truth, not realizing that her silence will soon have consequences far beyond her own fear. Meanwhile, Anita arrives early at the hospital to check on Vernon, who has been recovering steadily but whose sharp instincts have not dulled. And when he asks why Dante hasn't visited, Anita's hesitation speaks louder than words, planting the first seed of suspicion that something is deeply wrong, especially when Dante himself is shown moments later sitting alone in his car, knuckles white on the steering wheel as he listens to a voicemail from Anita he can't bring himself to return, the guilt in his eyes suggesting that whatever secret he's carrying may already be poisoning everything he touches. Back at the Dupree estate, tension crackles as Danny confronts Nicole over a whispered rumor that has begun circulating about Bill's sudden health decline, and while Nicole tries to dismiss it as stress or exhaustion, the look on her face betrays the truth she doesn't yet want to say out loud. That Madison's growing suspicion that Bill is being slowly poisoned might not be paranoia after all, especially once Madison herself arrives with a folder of meticulously gathered details, including irregular lab results and unexplained symptoms that point toward deliberate tampering, and though Danny initially lashes out, accusing Madison of stirring chaos, the room goes silent when Madison reveals a chilling pattern that connects Bill's illness to someone who has full access to his meals, his medication, and his trust. Elsewhere, Haley plays her role flawlessly, slipping into concern and affection as she visits Bill, her voice soft, her touch reassuring, yet the camera lingers just long enough on her unreadable expression when his back is turned. A subtle but unmistakable hint that her devotion may be nothing more than a mask, especially when she later meets secretly with Andre, their conversation dripping with double meanings as Haley assures him that everything is going according to plan, even as Andre warns her that pushing things too far could leave a trail she can't erase, a warning she brushes off with chilling confidence. The episode then pivots sharply as Chelsea uncovers a financial discrepancy tied to Jacob's recent transactions, and while it initially seems like a harmless mistake, her unease grows when she realizes the timing aligns perfectly with a series of anonymous threats that Jacob has received, leading her to confront him directly, only to be met with half-truths and evasions that confirm her worst fear, that Jacob is in deeper trouble than anyone realizes, trouble that may already be closing in. At the same time, June is blindsided when a stranger appears at her door demanding answers about Tyrell and Samantha, his voice raw with desperation as he insists she tell him the truth about what happened to his children, and June's carefully constructed composure crumbles under the weight of his grief, forcing her to relive choices she believed were buried forever, choices that may soon unravel an entirely separate web of lies. As the hour intensifies, Kat finally confides in Anita about her terror of genetic testing, admitting that she's afraid not just of a positive result, but of what it would mean for everyone she loves, and Anita, torn between compassion and urgency, urges Kat to face the truth before it's too late, words that echo ominously as the episode cuts back to Jacob, who is now meeting someone in a secluded location, his body language tense as the unseen figure accuses him of betrayal, their argument escalating until Jacob realizes with dawning horror that he may have underestimated how far his enemy is willing to go. The drama reaches a boiling point when Madison shares her poisoning theory with Nicole privately, presenting one final piece of evidence that leaves Nicole visibly shaken, and as she struggles to process the possibility that someone close to Bill could be actively trying to kill him, the camera intercuts with Haley calmly preparing dinner, her movements precise, almost ritualistic, as she adds a final ingredient to Bill's meal and smiles to herself, leaving viewers screaming at their screens. The episode's final act delivers its most devastating blow as night falls and Jacob is seen driving alone, the earlier threat replaying in his mind, when suddenly his phone lights up with a message simply reading, "Too late," and before he can react, his car swerves violently, the screen cutting to black just as the sound of a crash echoes, while elsewhere Kat finally opens her envelope, her face draining of color as she reads the result, tears spilling as she realizes the future she feared may already be written in her DNA. And the episode ends on a rapid-fire montage, Anita collapsing into a chair as Dante finally shows up, ready to confess, Nicole staring at Bill sleeping, unsure if he'll wake up, Haley washing her hands as if erasing evidence, June breaking down as the stranger vows he won't stop until he gets answers, and Chelsea receiving a frantic call she's too late to answer, culminating in a chilling title card that confirms what fans have been dreading, that Jacob's tragic and unexpected death is no longer a question of if, but when, leaving Beyond the Gates, racing into the week with three massive mysteries hanging in the balance: who wanted Jacob silenced, how long Bill has truly been in danger, and which secret will destroy the Dupree family first. Expanding the fallout and threading in even more tension, motive, and looming catastrophe for Beyond the Gates on Monday, January 12th, 2026, with the story refusing to let up for even a second as the shockwaves from that final montage ripple outward and begin to poison every relationship in Fairmont Crest, because the moment the screen fades back in after the crash echoing in viewers' ears, the episode doubles down on dread by lingering not on answers, but on reactions, opening with Chelsea jolting awake in the middle of the night, her phone buzzing relentlessly on the nightstand, her instinct screaming that something is wrong even before she sees Jacob's name lighting up the screen again and again with no response, and as she tries calling back only to be met with silence, a cold certainty settles over her that the man she loves may already be beyond her reach. Meanwhile, at the hospital, Bill's condition takes a subtle but alarming turn as a nurse notes an unexpected spike in his vitals, prompting Madison to press harder for a toxicology screen despite resistance from administrators who fear legal fallout, and this resistance only fuels Madison's resolve as she privately confides to Danny that someone powerful is pulling strings to keep the truth buried, a revelation that leaves Danny shaken as she begins replaying recent interactions in her mind, suddenly seeing moments of kindness and concern through a far more sinister lens. Elsewhere, Haley maintains her impeccable facade, comforting Nicole with soft reassurances while quietly steering the conversation away from Madison's theories, her manipulation so deft that Nicole almost believes her, until a fleeting look of panic flashes across Haley's face when Nicole mentions changing Bill's care team. A microsecond crack in the mask that confirms to the audience that Haley is far more invested in controlling the situation than she lets on. Across town, Andre wrestles with his conscience, pacing his apartment as Haley's words echo in his head, and though he initially convinces himself he's too far in to back out now, a late-night knock at his door rattles him to his core when he finds Madison standing there, eyes sharp, asking questions that make it painfully clear she's circling closer to the truth, forcing Andre into a dangerous calculation, protect himself or finally do the right thing. The episode then weaves back to June, who spends the night haunted by memories she tried to erase. The strangers demand reopening wounds tied to Tyrell and Samantha that she believed would never resurface, and when she finally breaks down and calls Anita for help, Anita realizes with dawning horror that June's secret may intersect with Dante's in ways that could destroy more than one family if exposed, especially when Dante, unable to live with his guilt any longer, admits that he knows more about Tyrell and Samantha's disappearance than he ever let on, a confession that lands like a bomb and reframes everything viewers thought they understood. As dawn approaches, The narrative tightens its grip with news beginning to spread of a serious accident on a remote stretch of road, and though no names have been released, Chelsea's fear turns into desperation as she races to the scene, only to be stopped by police tape and unanswered questions, the uncertainty more agonizing than confirmation. While at the same time Kat spirals in private after reading her genetic test results, her fear morphing into anger as she realizes that knowledge alone has already changed how she sees herself, her future, and her family, and when she lashes out at Anita for pushing her to open the envelope, Anita absorbs the blow in silence, knowing that the truth, even this painful, cannot be undone. The tension escalates further when Nicole finally agrees to authorize Madison's toxicology request behind Haley's back. A decision that may save Bill's life, but could put Nicole directly in the crosshairs of whoever has been orchestrating his decline, and as samples are sent off for testing, the clock begins ticking in earnest, every scene underscored by the fear that the results may arrive too late. The episode's emotional core sharpens as Vernon confronts Dante directly, sensing that the man he once trusted has been hiding something monumental, and when Dante finally begins to confess, his voice breaking as he admits his role in past decisions that led to unimaginable consequences, Vernon's devastation is palpable, not explosive but quiet, the kind of hurt that lingers and corrodes, leaving viewers stunned by the realization that redemption may no longer be possible for Dante. As night falls again, the story circles back to the crash site where investigators uncover evidence that suggests Jacob's accident may not have been accidental at all, including tampered brake lines and a missing security camera feed, revelations that transform grief into suspicion and officially open a murder investigation, even as the audience is shown fragmented flashbacks of Jacob's final hours, his fear, his regret, his realization that he trusted the wrong person, each image tightening the knot in viewers' stomachs. The episode builds relentlessly toward its final moments with Madison receiving a call from the lab confirming the presence of a foreign substance in Bill's system, her face paling as she understands the implications, while Haley, unaware that the walls are closing in, makes one last calculated move to secure her position, a move that may ultimately expose her, and the hour ends not with closure but with escalation. Chelsea collapsing in tears as she's told Jacob is in critical condition with injuries that may not be survivable, Nicole locking eyes with Haley in a charged silence, now heavy with mistrust, Kat staring at her reflection and whispering that she refuses to let fear define her, Dante preparing to turn himself in, and Madison staring at the lab report, knowing that revealing the truth could ignite a war that will consume everyone, leaving beyond the gates poised on the edge of tragedy with lives hanging in the balance, alliances shifting, and the haunting certainty that by the time the full truth comes out, it may already be too late for more than one beloved character. Absolutely. Here comes even more, pushing the story past the breaking point and letting the dread fully metastasize, continuing in the same breathless, single-paragraph American daytime television spoiler style for Beyond the Gates, as Monday, January 12th, 2026 refuses to release its grip and instead tightens it mercilessly, because once the possibility of murder is spoken aloud, nothing in Fairmont Crest can ever return to normal, and the episode leans hard into that truth by showing how suspicion spreads faster than grief, infecting every conversation, every glance, every silence, beginning with Chelsea being escorted away from the crash site as dawn breaks, her shock slowly hardening into resolve as she overhears investigators quietly discussing evidence tampering, a phrase that replays in her head until it becomes a mission, because even before she knows whether Jacob will survive the night, she knows someone wanted him silenced, and that knowledge ignites a fire in her that grief alone never could. Back at the hospital, Bill briefly regains consciousness, long enough to whisper Haley's name, a moment that devastates Nicole and nearly derails Madison's resolve. Yet the audience is shown the cruel irony of the moment as Haley stands just outside the room, hesitating before entering, her expression torn between calculation and fear, because she knows that if Bill speaks too much, or remembers too clearly, everything she has orchestrated could unravel in seconds. Meanwhile, Madison, now armed with preliminary toxicology confirmation, quietly begins documenting everything, copying files, recording conversations, and taking precautions that suggest she no longer believes this situation will be resolved internally. And when Danny notices Madison encrypting files on her laptop, the realization dawns that Madison is preparing for the possibility that exposing the truth could cost her job, her safety, or worse, elsewhere. The fallout from Dante's partial confession spreads like wildfire as Anita struggles to process the enormity of what she's heard, torn between loyalty and moral obligation, and when she urges Dante to tell the full truth to the authorities, his hesitation makes it painfully clear that his secret doesn't just implicate him. It implicates someone else, someone powerful enough that even now he's afraid to name them. The narrative then pivots sharply to June, who finally cracks under the pressure and admits to Anita that the stranger is right to demand answers, revealing that Tyrell and Samantha's disappearance is tied to a choice she made years ago to protect someone she loved, a choice that spiraled out of control and left lives shattered. And as June speaks, the camera intercuts with the stranger watching old photos, his grief turning into something sharper and far more dangerous, signaling that patience is no longer part of his plan. As the episode barrels forward, Nicole confronts Haley directly, not with accusations, but with questions designed to test her reactions. And while Haley answers flawlessly, her composure only deepens Nicole's unease, because instinct tells her that genuine innocence doesn't require such perfect control, and that quiet realization marks a turning point for Nicole, who begins to see that the greatest threat may have been standing beside her all along. The tension spikes again when investigators arrive at the Dupree estate to ask about Jacob, their presence sending shockwaves through the household, especially when they ask pointed questions about recent conflicts and financial entanglements, forcing characters like Andre and Danny to confront how their own secrets might now place them under scrutiny. As night falls for the second time, the episode slows just enough to let the emotional weight sink in, showing Kat alone with her test results again, this time not in fear but in determination, as she makes a quiet vow to confront her future head-on. A decision that positions her as an unexpected pillar of strength in the chaos to come, even as the audience knows that courage won't shield her from the fallout that's already in motion. The closing stretch of the episode crosscuts relentlessly, Chelsea being told Jacob may not regain consciousness, Madison receiving confirmation that the substance found in Bill's system was administered repeatedly over time, Dante standing outside a police station unable to bring himself to walk in, June being warned that the stranger has filed a missing persons report reopening old cases, and Haley alone in a dark kitchen, staring at her reflection as if finally recognizing the monster she's become. And the final moments land with brutal precision as Bill flatlines briefly before being revived. Jacob's heart monitor emits a steady but ominously fragile rhythm, and Madison whispers that once the full lab report is released there will be no turning back, leaving Beyond the Gates suspended in a state of unbearable tension where survival no longer equals safety, love no longer guarantees loyalty, and the question haunting every storyline is no longer who will be exposed, but who will be destroyed when the truth finally comes out. Beyond the Gates as Monday, January 12th, 2026 becomes an episode fans will point to as the moment everything irrevocably changed, because once the night stretches on and the characters are forced to sit with the consequences of their choices, the episode digs deeper into psychological fallout rather than relief, opening its next movement with Chelsea refusing to leave the hospital despite exhaustion. Her eyes locked on Jacob's room through the glass as machines breathe for him, and when a doctor quietly explains that swelling on his brain makes the next few hours critical, Chelsea's grief transforms into fury, a raw, unfiltered anger directed not just at fate but at the unseen hand that put him there, and she vows under her breath that if Jacob survives, she will uncover who wanted him dead, and if he doesn't, she will make sure his killer is exposed no matter the cost. Simultaneously, Madison's investigation reaches a terrifying new phase when she discovers that Bill's medication schedule was altered weeks ago, a subtle shift almost impossible to detect without obsessive scrutiny, and as she cross-references the timing with Haley's movements, a horrifying pattern emerges that leaves Madison shaken not by uncertainty, but by clarity, because for the first time, she isn't chasing a theory, she's staring straight at the truth, and that truth has a name. Elsewhere, Nicole wrestles with denial as she sits beside Bill's bed, memories of their shared history colliding violently with Madison's findings, and when Bill briefly opens his eyes again and tries to speak, Nicole leans in, desperate, only to hear him whisper a fragmented warning that sounds eerily like "don't trust," before he slips back into unconsciousness, a moment that cements Nicole's resolve to stop protecting appearances and start protecting lives. Across town, Andre finally cracks under pressure, replaying every compromised decision he's made in pursuit of loyalty and ambition, and when he receives a message demanding silence or else, the threat confirming his worst fears, he realizes that remaining quiet may no longer guarantee his safety, setting him on a collision course with Madison that could either save Bill or doom them both. The episode then cuts to June, who is now being watched, her every move shadowed by the stranger whose grief has sharpened into obsession. And when she confesses to Anita that she fears he won't stop until someone pays for what happened to Tyrell and Samantha, Anita understands that this storyline is no longer about buried secrets but about imminent danger, especially when the stranger is revealed to have legal documents in motion that could expose names June never intended to say out loud. Meanwhile, Kat's transformation continues quietly but powerfully as she begins researching preventative options late into the night, refusing to let fear dictate her future. And though her storyline unfolds away from the immediate chaos, it serves as a haunting contrast, proof that knowledge can empower even as other truths destroy. The episode tightens its grip again as investigators question Haley, their inquiries polite but pointed, and while she remains composed, the audience sees what they don't. Her calculating escape routes, her rehearsed denials, her growing realization that the walls are no longer just closing in, they are already touching her shoulders. As the hour races toward its end, Dante finally steps into the police station, only to freeze inches from the door when he sees a familiar name listed on a case file connected to Tyrell and Samantha, the implication devastating, because it suggests that his silence may have protected someone far closer than he ever intended, someone whose exposure could detonate the entire community. The closing minutes deliver relentless emotional blows. Chelsea collapsing when Jacob briefly squeezes her hand then flatlines again. Madison receiving confirmation that the poison could have been fatal days earlier if the dosage had increased. Nicole confronting Haley with a stare that says she knows more than she's saying, and June receiving a final warning that if she doesn't tell the truth, someone else will. And the episode ends not with resolution but with a chilling promise as the screen fades out on three words that echo across every storyline. Nothing stays buried. Cementing Monday, January 12th, 2026 as the chapter of Beyond the Gates where survival becomes uncertain, trust becomes lethal, and the countdown to tragedy officially begins.